I don't know that I ever heard a sermon preached on it growing up.
No.
Ever. You are stately as a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters. I say I will climb the palm tree and lay hold of its branches. When Ruth goes and lays down on the threshing floor with Boaz and she uncovers his...
We have gotten this question a few times from listeners, friends,
Yes,
that want us to really cover this topic. So we're going to dive into it today.
bum, bum, bum.
We've already started and probably should have been filming all morning. But Here we go. We're going to talk about purity culture. Yes. So purity culture, where did it come from? How did we get there? Did it do more harm than good? I think all those are valid questions.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. Well, we just wanted to say a few things too. So there are a lot of people who have been working on the effects of purity culture and all of that too. So there's a lot of resources online. There are also therapists and mental health practitioners who are trained to help with these sorts of issues coming out of having grown up in purity culture. So please seek out help if you are struggling with anything, because we know that there are long-term effects of a lot of these things. So we wanted to just put that out there to begin with. You know, you and I, Christine, we're both Gen Xers. And so we're a little bit older than the full-on big turn towards purity culture, which really came in the 90s.
yeah.
And we were teenagers in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah. So we got the sort of build up to totally organized purity culture, which came later with True Love Waits and the silver ring.
I got no ring. I got no ring.
Yeah, I didn't get a ring either.
No, I would have loved it.
Yeah. So it was a reaction against the sexual revolution that had started really in the 60s and then went on into the 70s. It also was a reaction against the rise of AIDS in the 80s and all of that. One of the most popular books was I Kissed Dating Goodbye by Joshua Harris. So there were all of these, that book sold over, there's like 1.2 million copies or something like that. So there were lots of people writing about this, and his whole thing was courtship, that you don't date anymore, that you court your person that you want to marry of the opposite sex, because of course, being gay or trans or anything like that was completely not an option in this movement and still isn't to this day. But courting your person that you wanted to marry, and you didn't even kiss until your wedding day, which is crazy. So like if you courted this person, then you waited, you saved yourself for marriage, and you would be chaperoned by parents even if you went anywhere together or tried to go to a movie or anything like that, right? I think that was the whole idea of courtship.
Yeah, that was the courtship. I don't remember being like the chaperoning of parents, but yes, there had to be a chaperone there, you know, or at least you went out in groups.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I grew up Lutheran. I've said that before. My dad was from an evangelical Lutheran movement that started in the early 1900s. Again, I know it sounds strange, but it does exist. And I got little echoes of evangelical culture. And we certainly got the message about modesty.
Yeah.
I've talked about this before. You know, we had to dress in certain ways. I had to wear a dress or a skirt to church until I was in 8th grade, when we finally were able to get my dad to allow us to not have to wear a dress or a skirt to church, but dress pants. We had to make sure that our bra straps weren't showing, that, you know, we were appropriately covered. And like, we never wore bikinis. We weren't even allowed to wear bikinis. You talked about that in a previous episode. Not even an option to try it on at the store. Like, we were always one-piecers in our family. So anyway, so what about your experience? I know that we have a rich trove of stories from you already, but I can't wait to hear some of your stories from today.
Well, this one's harder for me because I feel complicit in the whole purity movement, having my own issues with sex before marriage. So basically, as you pointed out, purity movement didn't come until I was a youth leader. Before that, obviously, we were told don't have sex before marriage.
Yeah.
I chose to.
Okay.
And then the teaching switches. And this is where it gets like sad. It changes to, well, now I'm not worthy. You know,
because you're tarnished, you're
because
tainted.
I'm tarnished, I'm tainted.
Your rose has lost its petals.
Yeah,
whatever that metaphor is.
Oh my God, all of that. Yes. And so now I'm walking in shame, and then now leading younger women and trying to tell them not to do this because of what happened to me. So it's like this continuous spiral.
So you would share your story and your experience, and then that was trying to help them not go down
the same road.
Yeah.
And we all did. That's the funny, part, if it's funny, is like we all did. It's that natural thing when we begin to have attraction towards somebody. It just happens, maybe not for everybody, but like for the most part, it just happens. And then we all beat ourselves up. So I was a youth leader, like I said. We'd talk about this when we'd run camps. I remember one camp in particular where the idea came out, and I can't tell you who started it. It could have been me. I'll just say it was probably me. Who knows? But the idea was that if we tithe 10% of our, money, that we should probably do the same thing and tithe our lives. So a lot of the people underneath me, the interns, began to then tithe their lives. And in that, what that meant was for 7 years, they were going to go 100% hard for God. That was it. And there was to be no dating, no sex, no nothing. And it was just to be all God. And everything else we would put on hold.
And how old were your people that were working with you?
15, 16, 17, wow. In that age. I recently met up with one of those kids who told me how much fun they had once it was over. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And we had a good laugh. But I do feel like I need to apologize to anyone that followed me back in the 90s. I'm so sorry. Because now I see the whole purity culture, the telling women that they need to save themselves and that they're unworthy is so harmful in the long run.
Yeah.
I was told point blank that because I had not saved myself for marriage, that my marriage to whomever it was, I hadn't even met my husband yet, but whoever was coming was never going to get the best of me, and that my sex life would never be where it should be because I had sinned. Now you sit and you think about that and like, well, what kind of God does that? First of all, why is that sin being held against me? But now, not only that, but then like 10, 15 years into my marriage, things don't, start to get rocky.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this is all because of me. This is because I had sex before marriage. Not that we couldn't communicate, that we were having financial issues, children are now around, and that's just hard. But it was like, oh no, this is all because of me. And so again, you have to stop and realize, why am I thinking this way? And a lot of times it goes back. It goes back to the teachings of what I received and those teachings I gave, unfortunately, that told people, you're not worthy if you have done this.
Yeah.
And it was going to carry with you forever and ever.
It's like the unpardonable sin.
Yeah.
Like that there's, even though evangelicalism and most forms of Christianity talk about grace, it's like for whatever reason, this wasn't part of it. Like once you were quote unquote sullied, you're sullied. And like you can't, you're stained, you're harmed, and you're forever whatever.
Yes.
And I think, one of the things that's been so heartbreaking to realize too is to put this in line with the Church Too movement, which is looking at all the people who have been sexually abused by leaders in churches.
Yes.
And then if you have that happening, plus this purity culture, kids don't even know necessarily what's happening to them. They don't have a language for it. They don't know how to talk about what's happened to them. And then it's like, well, it's already, I mean, like, I'm like, what's the point? So I'm damaged now forever. And like, there's nothing that can be done about it. And I think that's so heartbreaking to hear those stories of all these people, even if they weren't sexually abused by leaders in the church, but they were sexually abused by someone else. You know, you still have that same issue. And it's not, obviously it wasn't a choice, you know, if there's an abuse situation. So there's so many layers to this that, you know, the layers of shame and guilt and the denigration of bodies and like how, especially women's bodies. I think there is a lot, we've talked about this some on our episodes. We've decided that it's like an obsession with women,
a little bit of an
behaviors
obsession.
and their bodies and their, you know, how they dress and everything. And it's like the women's responsibility to dress in a way that doesn't tempt men, you know, instead of men being responsible for controlling themselves.
Right.
It's that women are responsible so that men don't get out of control or whatever, which is very backwards to me.
It is very backwards. And the teaching that we would always give in the evangelical circles is we would break it down by gender. Well, men are very visual. And so therefore,
Was that an eye roll I just saw?
Right? Sorry. Men are very visual, women are very feeling, so therefore women should cover their bodies so as not to create a problem for the men. I don't remember what the men were taught about the women and their feelings, except just discount them, but whatever. So, you know, again, I know, it's involuntary, the whole eye rolling thing when I start to discuss this, it's like, ugh. But what that really did, though, I feel, is that it disassociates us from our body.
Yes.
And creates a very unhealthy relationship with what is just sex. A beautiful, wonderful moment, hopefully more than a moment.
Right.
That, I can only pray that it's more than a moment. But it takes this act of two people surrendering everything to each other and becoming intimately known. And that's not good. And yet I think we would all say there's a moment, and it is probably a moment, that when you just feel completely uninhibited and wonderful, right?
Yeah.
That's the closest we can feel to pure joy and heaven.
Yeah.
You know, in those, you know, orgasmic moments, shall we say.
Yes.
Are we going to get censored? Oh, well.
Yeah.
Possibly. But so we miss out on that. And that is such a beautiful thing. And it's such a great thing for your mental health, for your body, for your, like, all of these things. It is scientifically documented. And again, the church comes in and says, we don't want that.
No.
Unless you're doing it to have children, let's just stay away.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that I think is really damaging in this whole purity movement and no sex before marriage and all of these things is that these messages that we get in so many of our churches growing up is that don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. Okay, then you get married. Okay, and then have sex and have a great sex life, but you don't know anything about sex. You don't know anything about your body. You're taught not to trust your body.
Exactly.
Because your body is going to lead you astray.
Exactly.
And so it's like you're all of a sudden supposed to then, you know, have this amazing, wonderful Christian marriage, but you don't have an understanding of how your own body is working, how your partner's body is working, and how to, a lot of women don't know how to pleasure themselves. Let's just say it.
Oh, we're going there. Yeah.
How many women have not had orgasms? We are definitely going to get censored today, aren't we? I got all of the messages from my parents about modesty and about no sex before marriage. The thing about it that I didn't know that was very confusing to me is that I was just not that interested in the guys that I was dating in high school and then college.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know why it's so hard not to have sex. And then when I came out and realized I was a lesbian, I'm like, oh, this is making a whole lot more sense now. But yeah, it was just like a whole thing. Like, I was just like, it's not hard not to have sex.
Yeah, why is it so hard for everybody?
Like, you have no willpower. Little did I know that, attraction makes a big difference.
Yes.
Yeah, it really helps.
Yes.
But anyway, so yeah, that's just a little glimpse into my own history, I guess. But
And I love that you said that earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, huh? Yeah, I didn't have that issue. I really wanted sex. Really did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It took me a little bit longer to figure it all out. But anyway, so thankfully I did. So
now you mentioned Joshua Harris, and that was the big book. And I think it's important to note for those that don't know that Joshua Harris, he wrote a book when he was like 17. It was ridiculous,
I think it was like
right?
20 or 21.
Oh, I thought he was like a teenager when he started the first one. Maybe? I don't know.
I think he was 20 or 21. But anyway, it's still very young.
Line, very young. Yeah, he has no idea what's...
Not married.
Yeah, not married.
Had been homeschooled, which there's nothing wrong with being homeschooled. He just was he had a very protected childhood.
Yes, very protected. I like that because, listen, I went to public school and yeah, there were lots of very good looking boys. If you're homeschooled, yeah, there's probably not you're attracted to in your house. Possibly.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Joshua Harris writes this book and it blows up. It was called I Kissed Dating Goodbye, and it blows up. And he tells all these peers, I'm assuming he was trying to tell his peers and those younger than him that they should also kiss dating goodbye and only court before marriage, which is okay. I mean, if that's a choice, that's a choice. What happened though was people like me, youth pastors all over, was like, this is the greatest book ever. All of a sudden there's like book clubs and this and that, and we're giving it to all of the kids, upon graduation or something ridiculous.
So you read the book?
I actually didn't read it.
Oh,
I was already married. Yeah. Right?
But you didn't have to read it to teach it to the kids?
I'm sure I flipped through it. Okay. I don't remember reading it, but I just remember this is the big thing. Y'all had to have it.
Okay.
I didn't feel like I needed to read it because, by this time I'm already indoctrinated, and I agree. Yeah, don't do this because I can tell you my past. So here's a great book of somebody that's your age and happens to be gorgeous. That was the other thing. It was like this gorgeous boy, telling all these women, I want to wait and I want to. So it was, they really kind of used it. Now we know years later, Joshua Harris has recanted pretty much the whole book.
And he has asked the publisher no longer to publish them.
Yes.
And they've taken them, and they've stopped publishing it.
Mm-hmm.
And he has now left Christianity. And he is also divorced. Now, I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No, absolutely not.
And I think he realized he did a documentary when he went to graduate school with another student. I watched it. It was very moving watching his process of like learning the effect of these teachings on the people who read the book. And I think he really had no idea all of the things that came from this purity culture that he was really championing. And but it's called I Survived.
That's the next book. Well, no, actually, first he said
the documentary is I Survived, I Kissed Dating Goodbye. So you can Google it, and it's available for free online. I just watched it myself. So he has since come out and he apologized for all that he taught. And then, I don't know if you know this or not, but then last year in 2024, he came out with another apology, particularly for the harm that his book caused the LGBTQ plus community. And because he felt the original apology was not strong enough. So I
Wow.
thought that was really powerful, that he had really seen the particular kind of harm that this purity culture movement had done to people in my community. So,
Right.
and it's sad that all the harm has to happen in the first place.
Absolutely.
And it's not right, but.
So we've talked about the shame. We've talked about all the hard stuff that happens as a result of this purity culture. But let's talk about, because I just heard about this and I thought this was fun, some of the ideas in which we have this idea that we shouldn't have sex before marriage is from the Bible. But there are some other cases that if you look a little bit closer in the Bible, that people may have been having sex before marriage, it has been wiped away. So like Song of Solomon, scholars now believe that book is about the sexual desires of two people that are not married. And there's a lot of
metaphorical language.
Yes.
And imagery.
Yes. Yes. That we were having fun reading at a time.
I encourage anyone, you can get a copy of Bibles online anywhere these days. Just look up Song of Songs, Song of Solomon. And honestly, it doesn't even matter what translation you pick, because even the King James, it comes through very clearly, even in the King James version.
Yes.
I always prefer the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, or the Common English Bible. Myself, those are the translations I like. However, there's just, you just can't ignore the sexual, the double messages that are coming through, about, and it's I think a very sexual and a very beautiful,
yes,
lovely book. It's poetic and it's gorgeous. And for so long, the church leaders said that it was about God and the church, which I think is so creepy.
Yeah.
And could explain a lot about the problems with our churches. But anyway, I just really don't understand how people bought that for as long as they did. I mean, that was the typical. It was said to be an allegory, and I'm just
right. But
no.
There's too many heaving bosoms for it to be an allegory. I mean, it's like Bridgerton. I mean, let's be honest.
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like
yes, right.
Yeah, Bridgerton in the Bible. I'll bet you that'll get people to read it.
Well, and then the other example that came up, we were talking about just before this, was in the book of Ruth, and not everyone knows that.
I have no idea.
Not everyone knows that in the Hebrew Bible, that feet is a euphemism for male genitalia. So in the story of Ruth, in the book of Ruth, when Ruth goes and lays down on the threshing floor with Boaz and she uncovers his feet.
It's not his feet.
It's not his feet. So it's other parts of his body that are nameless, that shall remain nameless. But there's things that are in our Bible and in the stories that, are not either known, or they're because of translation issues, or the church leaders don't want to let the people in the pews know about them, because it undermines their story that you're supposed to not have any sex before marriage. Yes. Which let's just also be honest, like the biggest thing is Jesus's own mother, who was an unwed single mom.
Yes.
Yes, she was engaged theoretically to Joseph, but she obviously was pregnant before they got married. So that would have caused a scandal. That would have been a thing, I would think.
And to just circle back to Boaz and Ruth.
Oh, yes.
Well, let's just make it very clear. That was just the beginning. She uncovered it and then didn't just sit back. That was more of a seduction.
Yes, it was.
So she is seducing this man, and then he marries her.
Yes.
Which was very nice of him. So, I mean, it wasn't just I'm just uncovering it.
Yes,
but
right.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you for spelling it out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Because I do feel like the Bible continually reiterates and pushes women's sexuality down. And so when you tell me something like that, I get a little giddy. Like, who is this woman who thought that she was so good that she's going to go seduce this man and she would be a foreigner and, you know, all of that stuff. And I love the connection. I'm going to nerd out a little bit.
Okay.
Boaz's mother was Rahab, who was a prostitute.
Yes.
And so I love this whole connection of, like, he probably dealt with a whole bunch of extra stuff too. And then now he's this grown man. He hopefully still has a relationship with his mother and understands all the things she's going through. And then he is approached by, so totally reading into it, but sex may have been a whole different mindset in that family. And I don't know.
Could have been.
It just cracks me up,
yes.
Like all this stuff. But anyway, women continually get told that we're the ones wrong when it comes to sex.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, I mean, you expressed, are they just obsessed with us? Or is it just that they can't control us and they're too scared to let us out? Because we'll start uncovering feet all over the place.
Well, if you're a cisgender, straight, heterosexual woman, yes.
True.
Not in my case. That's not the problem I have. Well, and I think anytime we say something that says, oh, the Bible says, I think that is always a red flag to me, because when you look at the Bible, there's so many stories, there's so many books over so many centuries. You cannot find a single unified message of anything. Like, you can find support for a lot of different things. So there's so many different kinds of relationships in the Bible. There's sexual assault, there's rape in the Bible, there's love in the Bible, there's desire in the Bible that is expressed in Song of Songs or Song of Solomon. You know, so there's all kinds of things that you find in the Bible. But whenever people say, well, the Bible says, or whatever, that always makes me, I'm always like, yeah, no, there's not one message.
Right.
You have to really, dig into it and kind of get a sense of where are the messages coming from, and I think it's always on us to be able to say, how do we understand that in our context today? Because we don't live in 800 BC or anything like that. We are living in the 21st century, and we have to interpret the Bible in a way that also makes sense for us.
Yeah. And we don't need to procreate anymore. We don't have to have the children over and over. We've got enough children. We have flooded the earth. Now we can have fun.
There you
right?
Go. I love that. Yes.
I mean, listen, it's pleasurable.
Yeah.
Don't miss an episode. Hit subscribe now.
One of the things I've been thinking a lot about in preparing for this conversation today about purity culture is just about the language. This idea of purity, and what does that mean? And I think that the idea of purity is, in my opinion, is a slippery slope. We've talked about slippery slopes a lot on the podcast, but there's a sense that, like, for someone who's had a different life experience for whatever reason, and they cannot claim this idea of pureness, sexual pureness, of not being sexually tarnished or sullied or whatever, which is often about women, but also has sometimes been used against men as well. I think the language I would much rather use is the language of wholeness, of being able to help people move toward wholeness in their understanding of their sexuality and their understanding of their body, in their relationship to God, their relationship with their partners, because purity is a very black or white sort of idea. You either have it or you don't. And if you don't have it, then it's like, well, let's all just, go crazy because I can't get that back. So what's the purpose of adhering to all these laws? You have some people who go in that direction, and other people just beat themselves up so much. They have so much self-hatred because they don't have that quote unquote purity anymore, that it really messes with their body image and their sexuality throughout the rest of their lives. And so I would much rather speak about wholeness and the move toward wholeness, and how God longs for us to find wholeness and that healing within ourselves, where we aren't splitting our body from our mind and spirit, but that we are one person, that sexuality is a healthy part of a whole person. And it's as important as our mind and our spirit, and that it's okay to experience pleasure, and it's okay to give pleasure, And these are not messages that are given easily in many churches today. There are movements where, like, for example, there's a curriculum, Our Whole Lives, which is coming out of the Unitarian Universalist, and I believe the UCC, the United Church of Christ. I think they worked on it together. I could be wrong about that. And it's an age and developmentally appropriate sex education curriculum for churches. And it's really about kids and adults being able to claim their bodies, understand, what's going on in them, and to be able to name things. And that's a huge part for me, is being able to name things, be able to say yes and no.
But I would go on, because not only does it set that up, but it also, if we're going back to the whole unworthy piece, when young women feel unworthy, they're all of a sudden targets to abusive and toxic relationships. Because if I don't feel worthy because I have had sex, then I'm going to marry this person because he is asked, even though he's not what I want, but I don't deserve what I want because I have already sullied myself. And that is such a sad thing, because then you create all of these just toxic, abusive relationships.
Yeah.
And on top of that, a lot of those women and young men from the Catholic abuse cases were, a lot of times, they were the ones that were already dealing with shame from something. So they were targeted. So they would come in, give their confession over what they'd done.
Or what had happened to them.
Or what
something.
had happened
Yeah.
to them. Right. And that priest then would know that that was a target. And that is all in the documentary, The Keepers.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
yeah.
But so all of that stuff, it just continues to be used against people, this whole purity thing, which is why the wholeness thing is such a beautiful part. God takes all of us, and we are our best and, the worst of ourselves, and it's okay. All of that is still loved and appreciated and worthy.
Right.
Thanks for tuning in. Up next, will the rejects keep, rethink, or reject today's topic? Stay with us.
What are we going to keep? What do we reject? Obviously, for me, I am definitely going to reject purity culture and my part in contributing to that culture. And my part in participating in it and trying to think that that was going to make me closer to God. Because it didn't. It didn't take me away, and it didn't make me God was always there. So I'm going to reject all of that.
I also reject purity culture. I didn't participate in it in the same way that you did, but I have felt the effect of these beliefs and these ideas about women's bodies, about sexuality, and And I have seen the effects of these beliefs in so many people's lives and how it harms them and affects them the rest of their lives. And, many times they need to seek professional help from a therapist that is not a Christian counselor, but a therapist who is trained in helping people through these kinds of trauma issues. I definitely reject the idea of purity culture, and I would much rather talk about what helps lead you to wholeness, a sense of wholeness in God, a sense of wholeness in yourself, and what is a healthy expression of my sexuality in the context of whatever relationship that you're in, And so I think that those are really important pieces. And purity culture never included the LGBTQ plus community. And in fact, did so much harm against so many people because, being gay or trans or, any of these expressions of a non-heterosexual cisgender kind of gender identity or sexual relationship was just wrong. And so all these people internalized these ideas and were told they are going to hell. And that has had a whole other layer of shame and guilt and has caused so much harm in my community. And so that's another piece that I specifically reject as well as part of the purity culture.
Absolutely. I like what you said about a healthy sexual life. And that's what I want to rethink, if you will. Or maybe I should say keep. I think I want to rethink Miss Rahab. And I'm going to rethink that one. That was fun. But I definitely want to keep this idea of a healthy sexual relationship. I do feel that there is a little too much, and I know, whatever, I'm probably going to go to hell for this, but I don't know whether you should wait till marriage or not. I don't care anymore, and I honestly don't think God cares. But I do think that there has to be healthy boundaries. I do think that there has to be a connection with somebody. The book Sex God by Rob Bell, he talks a lot about you can have sex without connection, but you can also have connection without sex. And the connection is what I believe God is hoping for, is connecting with each other. Rob talks about, in Amsterdam, there's a whole lot of people having sex, but there is no connection. And so to me, a healthy sexual life would be somebody that is having connection with someone as a committed partner, so I don't really care if you're married or not. Are you committed to each other? Is there, and even that, like, I don't know, can you have an intimate, connected one night? I don't know. That's not for me to say anymore.
There's such a range of sexualities. There's such a range of identities these days, from people who are ace or asexual, who do not feel sexual attraction at all. And then you have to people who are polygamous, or they're part of the polyamorous communities. We have lots of polygamy in the Bible. And yet even today, even though that is in the Bible, there is not an acceptance of polyamory in our world by Christian traditions.
Right.
Which I think is really ironic and strange. However, I do think that there is a range of sexual expressions and forms of relationships that can be healthy for people if they're able to choose them freely.
Yes.
And choose them for themselves and not have them imposed upon them. And so I think there's a lot of growth that we can still do to make room for healthy expressions of sexuality.
Agreed. Okay, well, I think we've done it. We've talked about purity culture. We've made our way through this.
We have put our own particular stamp on this topic.
Okay, so now read me some more from Song of Solomon.
Song of Solomon. Your navel is a rounded bowl that never lacks mixed wine. Your belly is a heap of wheat encircled with lilies. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle.